Alright, now when greasing the 6 points on your drive shaft of your FJ Cruiser, this is going to be the checklist of everything you need before you can start. You're going to need ramps, grease gun, a creeper, and paper towels. Paper towels are going to be very important when you're greasing the 6 points on the drive shaft, because this is a very messy job. Before you drive your vehicle up on the ramps, you want to make sure to put it in 4-wheel drive. And to do so, make sure it's in neutral. Pull back on the 4-wheel drive lever. Put into drive. Make sure your 4-wheel drive indicator is on. And then slowly drive up on the ramps. Once you're up on top of the ramps, you should put your vehicle in park and engage your emergency brake. Now, your vehicle's up on the ramps. You have your parking brake engaged. It's now safe to go under your vehicle. Now, as you're making your way to the front differential, you'll notice the first universal joint. Now, on the back side of the first universal joint, you'll see in the middle, it looks like a little cube sticking out of the center of the universal. On the top of that cube, pitched at about 45 degrees, is the first grease nipple. This is the second grease fitting right here, which would be your second universal joint you come to. It's right behind that knuckle. Then, in front of that is your second universal joint, third grease fitting. And that will also be located on a cube that sits in the middle of the universal. And that also has a little pivot, a 45-degree pivot on top of that, with the grease fitting in it. Now, this is your transfer case here, this aluminum piece. That comes right off your transmission. That tells the vehicle whether or not to go in 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive, or 4-low. Now, this is the drive shaft that goes to the rear of the vehicle. Now, if you notice this little silver dot right here, this is also a grease fitting. This grease fitting greases this ring right here, because these slide back and forth. If you notice in the middle of this universal, right behind the silver dot, which is kind of hard to see, there's going to be another cube sitting in that universal with a grease fitting tilted at a 45-degree angle. So we've already went through 5 grease fittings total so far. There's only one left, and it's located on the last universal joint right before you get to the rear differential. But it gets really tight back here because the rear of the car isn't elevated as much as the front of the car. Now, there's your rear differential. Just a little bit before that, your last universal joint. And you can almost see the grease fitting located right here in that cube. Now, they are a pain in the butt to get to. So you might have to reposition your vehicle a couple different times with it being in 4-wheel drive. It's pretty much a whole trial and error thing and just lining them up the right way. Like if you notice like they're all turned up towards the middle of the car right now and you want them to be facing down, you're going to have to move the vehicle a couple feet forward or backwards. So you might have to reset your ramps up, which now that we know this, we can go ahead and reset the vehicle up so they're easier to get to. which that's really not that big of a problem, but at least you know where all the points are at. Another thing I recommend when you're going to be greasing your grease fittings under your car is a pair of safety glasses that are clear. It's going to keep any loose dirt from when you're maneuvering around underneath your car from getting into your eyes. To load this, you go ahead, you just unscrew the top right here. Okay. You take this, put it off to the side. And you just got this cylinder here. You'll have this little T-handle that's spring-loaded. You pull back on that, just like that. You have this little trigger here. You push down on the trigger while still holding your T-handle. And see how the other cartridge is ejected, just like that. Now, after your cartridge is ejected, you go ahead and pull back on the T-handle again and get that little lever to lock. It usually locks automatically, just like so. Now, to load your new tube of grease, what you do is you'll have a cap side, and you'll have this little tab side. Well, you take the cap side, as you can plainly read here, place this end and cartridge first, and you do so just like this. Okay? I'm just going to work it in there a little bit. All depending upon what grease. You just go ahead and take your tab side now. Pop that off. Peel it back. Take the top of the gun, reinsert it back onto your threads. Now when you start threading it, don't thread it all the way. Thread it about 2 or 3 cranks and leave it still a little bit loose. I found this works the most effective way to get all the air bubbles out of the chamber instead of using these valves up top to relieve the air. I think that takes too long. So usually what I do is I just leave it threaded just enough so I know it's not going to come off, and then I go back over here, I pull down on a little button, I push the T-handle back in, just like that. Now all the air has escaped through these threads. Now what I'll do is I'll finish tightening it. So that way, when I start pumping it, the grease comes out. Alright, here's an example of what a standard grease fitting looks like. Place the coupler over the nipple, like so. I have to wiggle it on there a little bit. You'll feel it lock on. Once it's done that, then you can go ahead and pump it full of grease. By retracting your handle, pushing your handle into the gun, it'll self-retract and spring-loaded. That's going to cause grease to get pushed down through the cylinder, through the hose, into the coupler, into your grease fitting. Let's give it a couple good pumps. Pull this off, set it to the side, and wipe off the excess grease. As long as you have grease coming out of each one of those knuckles, you're in pretty good shape. Got this one here. Yeah, that purging is what you want to see, what you see right there in the video. That purging means that you've lubricated it properly like you should. If you notice now, you can see a thin layer of grease because I already had to back this up once to reposition so I can hit all the other fittings. And you can see I got a nice thin layer of grease on there so that the shaft can slide in and out like it's supposed to. Your vehicle, and it builds up inertia, it's just going to fling the grease right off the drive shaft, which will result in, grease flinging to the inside of your vehicle, underneath your louvers and whatnot, or whatever you want to call them. Yeah, it will stick to the bottom of your vehicle. It's really not that big of a deal. I mean, it will eventually come off just like any other petro-based chemical that comes out of your bearings or whatnot. But if you feel compelled to, I guess you could wipe off the excess grease. Well, that's going to conclude my video on how to grease the 6 points on the drive shaft of your FJ Cruiser. Thanks for watching.